Hello, everybody, and welcome to the soon-to-be-famous Illinois Author Project 2018 announcement. I'm Denise Raleigh from the Gail Borden Public Library, and I'm also a founding member of the soon-to-be-famous Author Project, and I am so delighted that everyone's here today and that everyone is here for this 5th year. And we have some exciting new announcements, as I've told some of you previous to us going on the air. This is truly something to take stock of, where we've been and where we're going. I want to thank first Fountaindale Public Library for hosting this event. Thank you very much. Jeffrey Fisher's back there on the controls for what you're seeing on there. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you again for, this is a project that is meant to connect libraries with authors and libraries with libraries. This is a coordinated project. We have judges from all types of libraries and from across the state. So I'm understanding we have a few judges here. Would you stand up and let's give them a round of applause? They are the backbone of how this is this is a blind judged 3-round project, and some of these people have been with us from the first year, and we really want to thank you for being part of this project. We also, for our finalists today, are libraries, are nominating libraries that are part of this process. We want to thank you. So if you would stand up from Galesburg, from Westmont, and from Fox River Grove. Thank you very much, and congratulations again for your authors being the finalists in 2018. I also want to recognize the members of the soon-to-be-famous Illinois Author Project Committee, and we have several of our folks here today. Nikki Zimmerman from Rails, over here. Eva Bagili. I got it. Where are you, Eva? There you are. She's from Chicago Ridge. Jeffrey Fisher, who I've mentioned before, from Fountaindale. Carol Morency from Mount Prospect Public Library. Kate Buxton, LaGrange Park Public Library. And this is truly a coordinated effort, and these people all have such a meaningful contribution. Again, this is about libraries working with authors and authors connecting with libraries, and hopefully and it's a win-win-win situation here. And this is a wonderful, again, to take stock that this is our 5th year in existence. When a small group of us went, and there was a really small group of us that went and talked about starting this contest, we kind of thought maybe in the back of our minds this could happen, but to have this announcement that I'm going to make, and this is the one I shared with some of you earlier, I shared with the author groups, the winner of 2018 in Illinois will be part of a national contest as well. We are going to add 7 more states that right now are running author contests in their own states, and I'm going to name those. So if anyone from those states is watching, welcome. Wisconsin, California, Ohio, Kentucky, Virginia, Minnesota, and Missouri. So not only will our author who will win here in Illinois be celebrated here, but we will actually have a author contest between the states and their librarians, and those states will be the final judges in their states as well. So celebrating what libraries can do for authors and what we can do together is what this is all about, and who would have believed in our 5th year that we could do this. And thank you, Mitchell Davis from BiblioBoard, for being part of that. Library Journal is also a part of that, and so it's really, really fantastic. And you're going to hear from Mitchell in a little while during the agenda. We also want to thank 2 of our super organizations that have always supported this project, and that's Reaching Across Illinois Library Systems. Thank you. They've been there from the beginning. We also have the Illinois Library Association has always been a powerful, powerful supporter, and we're lucky today to have Cindy Robinson, the Deputy Director, here, and she's going to say a few words. So welcome, Cindy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have to say this is one of my favorite things of the year, and on the years that I haven't been in the room for the announcement, I've been watching on YouTube, so it's much more exciting being in the room. Everybody on YouTube, come and be in the room next year. ILA has always been very proud to be a part of this project. It's such a great way to recognize our authors, and it's so much fun. And as a special thank you to our libraries, I want to announce that for the second year in a row, we will be offering a free conference registration to the library whose author is selected today. And we also hope that the author will be able to join us at our conference in October in Peoria. Thanks very much, and good luck, everyone.
Hello. Mic good? Am I good? Okay. As mentioned, as Denise mentioned, I'm Carol Morenzi with the Mount Prospect Public Library and one of the committee members. I wanted to introduce you before we meet our finalists. I wanted to introduce you to the 2017 winner. And that is, and he is here with us today, Daniel Rosenberg. I'll tell you a little bit about the book that won. His book is called The Towers Still Stand. In this alternate history, several hijackers and their leaders survive and escape a botched September 11th plot and plan a second attempt on the towers. Only one man in the government and an aggressive journalist suspect what might be afoot. But how can they convince a skeptical nation that the World Trade Center is in danger? These two find themselves in the deadly battle against time and a complacent nature of the U.S. government. If they fail, the World Trade Center towers could fall. A professional journalist, Daniel Rosenberg's career includes stints writing for the Wall Street Journal and Barron's. He currently writes about financial markets for a major brokerage firm. Rosenberg is married, has 2 sons, and lives in Highland Park. And The Towers Still Stand is his first novel. And I'm going to invite Daniel to come up and make a few remarks about what it's like to be the soon-to-be famous Illinois author.
Is the mic okay? Can you hear me? Good. Thank you for the kind introduction. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to say this has been a great experience for me this last year. I want to thank everybody who made it possible, the judges, the readers, the libraries, the committees, because it really is a life-changing experience, I think you'll find. And it's just so satisfying to go to different libraries, meet different readers who've read your book, who have lived through the same plot and the characters that you've created, and to see it through their eyes is quite an experience. And I never expected that to happen. I never expected to be the winner, so it was just an exciting year, and I know for all of you it's going to be, just to be up here is a great experience. In fact, I'd encourage you all to consider yourselves winners, even if obviously only one of you takes the prize. Just being selected to be in the top 3 is a huge acknowledgement of your talent and your energy. So I hope that all of you will consider yourselves winners, and only one of you can take away the prize, but I'd encourage all of you to keep on pushing ahead to get the recognition you deserve for the talent and the achievement you've achieved today. So terrific job, everybody. Congratulations. I just wanted to say thanks again. I definitely am very happy that I entered this contest and saw this kind of excitement stirred by the book I wrote, and I wish the same to everybody this year. Thank you very much.
Daniel will be back to read excerpts from the finalists' books. But now I'd like you to join me in meeting the finalists for 2018. Please note that this order is not indicative of anything except the alphabet. So, the first author we're going to meet is Edward Vadas. He has a long career as a high school physics teacher. He received bachelor's degrees in physics and communications, wow, and a master's degree in administration. He is now retired and focusing on his writing. And he was nominated by Westmont Public Library, and his novel is Sarah's Heart. And I'll tell you a little bit about it. Sarah, her husband, and her children may have escaped the Holocaust in Europe, but they still carry the scars inflicted by the Nazi regime. Sarah, a caring wife and mother, is plagued by nightmares and the guilt of surviving when so many of her relatives perished. Even in her new home of Chicago, she feels anxious and uneasy. Then a chance encounter with two women takes her life in an unexpected direction. The women band together and form an unconventional family with all of their children. As they face the many challenges and obstacles lurking in mid-20th century America, each will learn from the others, and it is with the gentle support and love of her new friends that Sarah will finally confront the trauma of her past, make peace with her guilt, and begin to heal. And I'd like to read you a few comments from judges. It was noted that the plot, narrative, and characterizations are simply beautiful and extremely accessible. His characters are multidimensional, and many parts of who they are, intellectually, emotionally, and soulfully, evolve throughout the novel. So I'd like to invite Edward to come and say a few remarks, if you'd like, about the book or the writing process.
All right, thank you. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I wrote this book from actually a personal experience. My mother was illiterate. She was forced to marry when she was 13 to a widower with 7 kids. And I have an uncle who married a Holocaust survivor. She lost all her family at 9 years old, and she was married to my uncle afterwards. And I was raised by these 2 women. So I thought to write, I learned from them so much. The power of women to when things go wrong, when they're at their zenith. And so in the characters, Sarah was my uncle's wife, and Rose, the other one, an African-American, was my mother. And working at Proviso East High School, I have a privilege of dealing with the mothers of at-risk students. And some of them were Hispanics, and I got to interact with the Hispanic mothers. So I brought a third character, Maria, as a Hispanic woman. And I put them all together in Chicago, and they have to raise their sons as brothers just about. And all the tribulation of the late 50s and 60s and the issues with civil rights and racism and what have you. So I made the whole story up, but they're actual stories from the parents of kids I taught, and from my own mother, and also from my uncle's wife. That's the whole thing that came into my mind. And it's just like things I used to tell everybody around me and my students. If you lose your family, just like what Sarah did, you can make another one. Just make friends. And something I remember from my grandmother, she said, you go someplace, Ed, you don't like, you make it better. You plant flowers, you bake bread, and you make a family. And it's always sat with me. I made family in school. I made family with friends. I made family everywhere. That's basically the whole essence of Sarah's Heart. Thank you.
I have several excerpts of your book. I'm going to read one of them. And this is Rose explaining to Sarah how to compensate for a lost family by forming another one, which is what you were just talking about. Rose to Sarah. Sarah, You cannot waste your life living in the past. If you do, then you're going to lose what's left, and they would win. I learned that I could choose other people to become my extended family. So as long as I live, and no matter what they do, I'll never be alone. This is sometimes better than having a family of your own. You get to pick your family members to your liking. It sure beats the heck out of getting stuck with nitwits. And what about other Jews? Why do you shut them out? They were as much victims as you were. You need them, and they need you. There is nothing wrong with your ethnicity. You need to go home, Sarah. You need to go back to your people. There is nothing wrong with being a Jew, or a black, or Hispanic. There is something definitely wrong with the ones who think so. We cannot spend our lives explaining to bigots that we are all equal. They are not worthy of our time, and they are unimportant. We are armed with the Constitution, which is the best document I have ever read, and the best part about it is that it holds true for all times. We need to hold on to it and on to each other. Sarah, you need to forgive so you can love again. Nora stood by us yesterday and helped us. She is family now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now let's meet Heather Bentley. Heather grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Her first book was a short story written at the age of 9 on a flight to Florida that centered around her hopes that the plane she was traveling on wouldn't nosedive. And yes, it was even illustrated. She continues to reside in Illinois with her family, and she loves flying about as much as she did back then. Heather writes contemporary romance and is also the author of the book Beautiful Lies. Today, we are here to learn more about The Sweetest Heartbreak. And she is nominated by the Fox River Grove Memorial Library. And here's a little bit about it. 23-year-old Lea Dawson is better off than most, and she knows it. With a supportive family, a great job out of college, and her best friend Eli by her side, she doesn't take anything this life has to offer for granted. A lesson she learned when she lost her dad to cancer. Another lesson she's learned, don't date your best friend. But she and Eli worked through the awkwardness and are now firmly planted in the friend zone. Until she meets Eli's other best friend, Heath, and true feelings are exposed. Fresh out of rehab, Heath Brayburn is Leah's opposite in every way. Spoiled, reckless, impetuous. The only thing they have in common is Eli, who has been by Heath's side through it all, including when his mom up and left years ago. A fact he's never gotten over. But at 24 years old, it's time to prove that he's not the man everyone has come to expect him to be. This is a story of what happens when friendships are tested, words go unspoken, and hearts are broken. And now 3 friends all manage to find their way back to each other. Some of the judges' comments included that the writing was engaging and expressive. The writing style is gripping and pulls you in, and the book was compared to the style of Susan Elizabeth Phillips. So now I'd like to introduce or bring up Heather, and she could talk a little bit about the book and the process and anything else.
Well, my love of reading started very young. I was fortunate to have a mother who was a very passionate reader. She probably read 5 books a week. And at that time, our town did not have a library. What we had was an old school bus that would drive into town once a week, and we would ride our bikes over and bring last week's books in and go through the bus and pick out, you know, five new books or so and bring those home. And I just thought a school bus library was the coolest thing ever. But eventually it did go on to become what is now the Indian Prairie Library in Darien. And but that's where my passion for reading began, and my passion for writing sort of followed suit. Like she had mentioned, I was always physically making my own books. I was taking paper and just stapling it together. I would write the stories, I would illustrate the stories, and it was just something I always loved to do. So as I got a little bit older and, you know, had my children and now I was home, I got back into writing again. And I was reading self-published authors, so I was very familiar with the possibility that it held. And I decided one day to just set a challenge for myself. I was reading so much, and every time I would read, I would think in my head how I wanted the story to go, how I would have changed it, how I would have ended it. And finally, I just said, you know what, I am going to write my own book. So I set a date for myself. I will have this book done in 1 year's time. And sure enough, you know, the first book, Beautiful Lies, was published, and it was a really good experience to go through the process of how in the world do I find an editor? How do I find a cover artist? How do I, you know, as much as you do it alone, you don't do it alone. You need a lot of help. And so it was just the process of figuring out how to go about finding that help, and there are so many amazing, wonderful, generous authors out there who are willing to tell you, talk to this person, do this, read this book, read, you know, all that. If anyone's interested, there's so many videos on YouTube that are available, so many great author groups on Facebook, and their support and advice has just been monumental. So my writing process is really very much alone. I send my kids off to school and I sit at my computer, and next thing I know, 8 hours has gone by and they're walking in the door, and someday I have 1,000 words written, and some days I might have over 5,000, and you know, other days I have to go get the dry cleaning. So, but this has just been a wonderful opportunity, and just so very, very cool to be a part of. So thank you for all who have been involved and who helped get me to this point. I truly appreciate it. And thank you to my family who's here supporting me today.
Why do I agree to these things? Oh yeah, because I love Eli and Lindsay. I fuss with the ribbons on the small box and head up the walkway. They're having an impromptu barbecue with a few friends to celebrate their recent engagement, and I couldn't say no. Not that I would even want to. They've both done so much for me, and I truly couldn't be happier for them. As far as I'm concerned, Ellie is family, and Lindsay is better than anyone I could ever have picked for him. She's funny and kind, and she looks at him like he's the center of her world. And with everything that happened in Chicago, any bitterness she may have felt toward me in my past with Ellie has vanished. My only real problem at the moment is a car that sits out in front of the house, Heath's car. I know at some point I'll need to learn to coexist with him, but until then, I'm going for subtle avoidance. I enter the house and am immediately met with the sounds of soft music and jovial conversation. Cautiously, I move toward the heart of the party, ready to divert my eyes and change my path if necessary. There you are, Lindsay greets me with a warm hug before gracing me with her cheerful smile. You look wonderful as always. Did you get some sun today? I did, thanks. Remembering why we're here, I excitedly grab her hand. Let me see. Her engagement ring is a stunning round 1-carat diamond encircled with an outer layer of small diamonds all set on a platinum band. I actually already saw it when Ellie brought me to the jeweler for a second opinion, but seeing it on her hand only makes it more beautiful. I lightly squeeze her fingers. Gorgeous, Lindsay. I'm so happy for you. Her face eases into a wistful smile. Thanks, Leah. I'm pretty happy myself. With an arm around my shoulder, she leads me into the family room. Ellie mentioned it was going to be a small get-together, but it's more so than I expected, which is going to make avoiding him even harder. As the sun goes down and the temperature cools, the group ends up outside, seated around a bonfire for s'mores and easy conversation. Heath has either sensed my need to be left alone, or he's enjoying the attention of Lindsay's friends. Thankfully, I have Ellie's sisters to keep me company. As if they sense my anxiety, at least one of them has stayed by my side. It's been borderline exhausting keeping tabs on him all night so that I'm not caught by surprise. I manage to steal a glimpse when he's not looking, just long enough to see he's dressed in black slacks and a navy button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled to the elbows. There's been more than one moment where I could feel his eyes on me, but I've stayed vigilant to shift away when needed. Can we have everyone's attention, please? The group collectively turns to our hosts, who are standing as a fire lights up their beaming faces. Ellie looks down to his hand that's entwined with Lindsay's before beginning to speak. We've asked you all here tonight, not only because you are our friends and family, but also because you each bring something special to our lives. And for that reason, we'd like to ask each of you for the honor of standing up in our wedding. Cheers ring out as we all encircle the couple. I hug Ellie first and then move to Lindsay. When I step back, my heels meet someone's toes, and I immediately turn to apologize. But when the owner of those toes turns out to be Heath, I skip the apology altogether, stepping around him and grumbling, "Excuse me," as I pass. As soon as I see an opportunity, I say a quiet goodbye to Ellie and Lindsay, and then sneak undetected to my car. Just as my feet travel from the roughness of the stone walk to the smoothness of the paved road, I hear steps approaching from behind me. Lea! Shit. My skin prickles as the hairs on my neck rise. So much for subtle avoidance.
Our third finalist is Liane Morgan. Liane has written 3 award-winning short stories, Thomasin's Journal, A Midwest Gothic Tale, Even a Beautiful Swan, and A Writer Takes Her Pen to Write the Words Again. Morwen Cottage is her debut novel, and she lives in Galesburg, and she was nominated by the Galesburg Public Library. And here's a little bit about Morwen Cottage. Rowena Mills has just gone through a divorce when she found a neglected certified letter on her kitchen table. She's astonished to discover her paternal great-aunt, a woman she'd never met, left her entire estate in Cornwall, in England, to her. Without much planning, Rowena sold everything she owned and boards a plane to England. Situated in the Bodmin Moors, the home, called Morwen Cottage, was run down from years of neglect. Rowena befriends an elderly neighbor who lives alone across the lane. In an attempt to do repair work on her home, she injures her finger, and in the doctor's surgery, she meets the handsome Dr. Harry Reeder, the only physician in the village. The doctor suggests someone to help her with a neglected cottage and sends a young man named Simon her way. After Rowena's arrival, a young waitress is murdered, and about the same time, she encounters strange happenings in the cottage. When a second young woman is murdered, she goes to stay at her Mr. McGreevy's house, the neighbor across the road. With only a 4-month visa for England, Rowena needs to make decisions about the cottage, her future, and the men in her life, if the killer doesn't get her first. The judge's comments include how the book has an enchanting setting coupled with traditional Gothic elements and contemporary thriller techniques, and making for a unique twist on several genres. The relationships are very appealing, and one judge said it reminded the judge of Nora Roberts. So I would like to invite Liane up to talk about her novel.
Well, I spent my career working in a dental lab in a basement, so I'm not a public speaker, so bear with me. I'm going to first start off with what a library means to me. My first memory of the Galesburg Public Library was May 9th, 1958. My mother came to my room that night and gently woke me up and led me to the car. My parents, brother, and I stood before a gathering crowd in front of the library. We watched in horror as the historic Romanesque library was completely engulfed in flames. My mother said, only to herself, all of those books. And I looked at my mother's face, and the inferno was reflected on her face, and that's all I remember. I was only 5 years old. The salvaged books, archives, and a 1930s dollhouse that smelled of smoke were placed in an old Montgomery Ward warehouse as we waited for a temporary facility to be built. Our new library opened November of 1961, and as of today, that transitory building still serves as our library and the one that I remember. This modest library got me through many homework assignments, lots of checked out books, movies, book clubs, a library that has always been a comfort zone. A library has always been a comfort zone for me. I've always felt that a library is one of the greatest gifts a community has to offer. Later on in life, I became a Harry Potter fan, and to my great surprise, in 2007, I read in the newspaper that the Galesburg Public Library was having a Harry Potter book club. And this is where I first met Jane Easterly, a librarian and assistant director of the Galesburg Public Library, and also a voracious Potter fan. In 2016, Jane brought it to my attention, the NaNoWriMo Challenge. It planted a seed in me to finally write the novel I had always wanted to write. During the month of November that year, we all met at the library once a week, and at one of the meetings, Jane brought up the soon-to-be-famous Illinois Project. I liked the idea of librarians being the judges and how this contest reached out to self-published authors. I spent 2017 working on my manuscript, and at the end of the second NaNoWriMo, I finished it and submitted my story to Author House for self-publishing. I got the idea for Morwen Cottage from a trip I took to Cornwall in 2015. As I walked around the hometown of Daphne du Maurier, I became fascinated with the place and understood how she got her macabre ideas to write. At nighttime, all the memories were fresh in my mind. I took notes of the surroundings, where she was from, oh, the birds were so loud. I see where she got the story of the birds. And it was a small touring group, so I got to be friends with the tour guides, and they were just such nice guys. And one of the tour guides, he was just sort of kidding around, and he's like, well, you need to write a novel, you know. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, I will. But I did, actually. And the other tour guide, who lives right in Fowey, Cornwall, which is the hometown of Daphne du Maurier, he is such a sweetheart. He has my book, it started in Fowey, and he has put my book in 7 libraries, in the library system in Cornwall, England. And I just, that just means more to me than you can imagine. So that's just basically my story.
Driving into the countryside of Cornwall on the narrow winding roads, Rowena entered into some moorland. She couldn't take her eyes off the scenery replete with rolling hills, hedge fences, and grazing sheep. The ancient stone barns stood picturesque with their sodded moss rooftops. Rowena turned off into a heathland area and followed a narrow lane, becoming surrounded with a landscape of shrubbery and beautiful purple and yellow flowers. Off in a distance, she saw a group of Dartmoor ponies peacefully grazing. On the approach to the house was an old wooden frame with a sign reading Morwen Cottage. To the left of the lane, her deceased aunt's cottage came into view, surrounded by an archaic wooden fence in bad need of paint. The Gothic house had lancet windows, but so overcome with vegetation it was hardly visible. Out of a moss-covered roof with cedar shingles were 2 brick chimneys with battlements. The front yard had 2 huge gnarled oak trees. The scene reminded her of a Thomas Kincaid painting, only tired and sad without the illumination. On the right of the lane, about 300 feet away, she noticed a small chalet with smoke coming from the chimney. She stepped out of her car and followed the barely visible flagstone walkway. On the covered wooden front porch, dried leaves crackled beneath her feet. Cobwebs draped over the window sills. The broken glass remained on the porch by the window where Dr. Reeder had entered. Rowena unlocked the front door with an old ornate skeleton key. Slowly opening the arched entrance door, she spotted a fireplace in the front room and sagging floorboards which creaked as she crept across them. She walked through the kitchen and saw the second hearth. She attempted to open the back door, but couldn't get the wooden portal to budge because bramble had overgrown all around the cracks to the point of sealing it tight. When Rowena went back outside to gather her luggage, the lushness of the air made her inhale deeply. Scanning the area, she could see for miles all around, and it fascinated her. Brushing up against one side of the house stood a lovely white rose bush, robust, refusing to give in to the neglect. She became aware of the silence in the air, hearing only the sound of an occasional bird tweeting or a sheep in the far distance, peaceful. Rowena re-entered the house and ascended the groaning, dust-ridden wooden stairs. The place smelled musty and closed in. She took her luggage to a bedroom facing the back of the house, wondering if this could be the room where her aunt died. The 2 windows squeaked as she opened them to help air out the area. Entering into the upstairs lavatory, the cast-iron clawfoot bathtub had a water pump for a nozzle. The vintage sink was the kind with separate hot and cold faucets and a drain plug connected to a chain.
Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me? My name is Eva Vigili. I work at the Chicago Edge Public Library, and I'm also one of the STBF committee members. Thank you, Daniel, for your readings. And thank you to each author for your moving remarks. Hearing what libraries mean to you really brings home the meaning of this project and how important it is. Before we get to the final reveal, I do have another big announcement. In partnership with Biblio Board, we are excited to once again be the first to kick off a brand new, soon-to-be-famous manuscript contest, which will begin on November 1st. The winning manuscript will get a professional editor, formatting, design, and cover, and will be automatically entered as a semifinalist into the soon-to-be-famous Illinois Author Project if the winner chooses to go the self-publishing route. The information is available on the Biblio Board blog and will be posted on our website, soon-to-be-famous.info. Now, please help me to welcome Mitchell Davis from Biblio Board for the final reveal.
So thank y'all so much. It's very, very nice to be here. We actually watched the live stream last year, and we've been involved in this contest. I think this is the 3rd year. And, you know, I have a background in self-publishing. I was one of the founders of BookSurge, which ended up becoming CreateSpace at Amazon. And so for, going on almost 20 years now, I've had a real interest and mission to validate self-publishing as a legitimate way to get your work out into the world. And I feel incredibly fortunate now to have had that sort of crash into the work that we do with libraries, realizing that libraries are the ultimate validation of writing. So if you can marry together the power of self-publishing with the power of librarians to identify books that need to be read by people in the world, I think we're just in the beginning of seeing what the potential for that is. And you guys have really laid out a template here that other people can follow. Denise mentioned the work we've done to sort of expand this into the other states. All of those contests launched on April 2nd, and they're all getting submissions flowing in. So there is definitely a network effect to this, and nothing happens as quickly as you might want or as you hope. But I think with pressure and attention and continuing to learn, this can really be a powerful phenomenon, and publishing needs it. Book publishing needs it. We were talking earlier about the fact that librarians really can become a meaningful, if you want to think about it in baseball terms, almost like a farm system for the publishers. You know, you're out, you're interacting with your local authors, the best books can be identified, rise to the top. We had an author who submitted a book through a small library in Maryland probably about 2 years ago. And we also, similar to how we work with Soon to Be Famous, we work with the Black Caucus of the ALA, and so we do a self-publishing contest with them for the best book published by an African-American author. And she won that contest and just got signed to a 4-book deal with St. Martin's Press. And so nothing makes me happier than having to pull a book off of Selfie and out of our self-publishing system because the author just fulfilled their goals of getting published. So that book's coming out in May, and we're doing a whole lot of promotion with Publishers Weekly around that, just so that this narrative and this story can become more mainstream. So super excited to be here. And I'm super excited to be able to give the award to this year's winner as well. So I think this is the big moment, right? Yes. And the winner this year is Heather Bentley. Awesome.
Thank you.
And
Also have
Everybody loves a big check. Oh, sorry. Yes. Awesome. And do you want to, I think you want to say a few? Yes, go for it, yeah.
Is it wrong how excited I am about a big check? It's just so cool. I see them on Ellen all the time, and I'm like, I just want a big check. Oh my gosh, this is fabulous, and it's just, so cool. I'm just trying to think of a few words to put together right now. You think I would know how to do that? But no, I mean, I put a lot into this book, and I'm so proud of it. And I had a lot of fun with it. There were a lot of times I wanted to bang my head against the wall with it, and I probably did. But at the end, the finished product was just, again, something I'm so proud of. And you know, I will go on, but in case they're listening, I would love to thank my cover artist, Sarah Hansen, and my editor, Giovanna Shirley, and my critique partner, Robin Hill. All my awesome betas, Kirsten, there's too many to list, but I invited everyone to come and watch and listen, so hopefully they are. Marla, my proofreader, you guys just like again, it takes a lot of people to make a good book, and I was so thankful to have some of the best. So, and thank you for this. This is awesome. It's going right on my desk.
So congratulations to Heather and to all of you. As Dan said earlier, I think everybody's a winner here, including libraries. Yes. So just to wrap up, I want to make sure to mention, to acknowledge our committee members who couldn't be here today. And that's Julie Stam from Eisenhower Public Library District, Donna Fletcher from Donna Fletcher Consulting, and Sue Wilsey from Helen Plum Public Library. Thank you again to BiblioBoard and to Rails and to ILA and to Fountaindale Public Library for hosting us today. One more time, I think our libraries, our nominating librarians, and our librarian judges need to be thanked because they've been part of this process from the beginning, and without them, we wouldn't be doing this. So thank you, guys. And if you're watching online, thank you too for your time and attention. You can follow us on Facebook at Soon to Be Famous Author, and on Twitter at STBF Author. And that is all for now. Goodbye and thank you.